Hello and welcome to the Gator Football Podcast. This is week, 5, 6? Well, we won a 5th game. That's what's important. I wanted to talk about the LSU game. There's a bit to talk about, a lot more than what we had against Kentucky. But that's not all that together surprising. LSU is a better team. They just have more on defense. Their offense, not great, but I mean, Zach Mettenberger's not Morgan Newton, which is probably to the great relief of LSU fans, but he's also not very good in comparison to better SEC quarterbacks, and I don't see him as being much better than Jordan Jefferson, Jarrett Lee, that combo. So I guess there's not much to talk about in terms of that, I suppose, except for, to some degree, Florida is now kind of fortunate that LSU didn't have one of those outlier games against us on offense like they did last year, where Jordan Jefferson passed for some ridiculous amount of yards and they went deep on us, and it was just unexpected, and I'm very glad that we didn't have to see that again. But I mean, let's get to the breakdown. We have but first, just a quick little note of a moment of silence for FSU's national championship hopes, as NC State Bad Wolf Corporation, led by the notorious T.O.B., has in fact defeated the Florida State Seminoles in just the most hilarious fashion possible. If there was a funnier way to watch Florida State lose, I have not seen it, because that was great. Yeah. All right, so let's get right on to the breakdown. Let's start with special teams. Just because there's not a lot to say. There was great punting by us. LSU did actually. Brad Wing outkicked his coverage not infrequently, and we did fair catches, and we maintained control of the ball. There wasn't any muss or anything, but Muschamp did make a change there. To Purify, I forget, but they did make a change from Andre DeBose. So I don't know what the real idea was there. I don't know if Muschamp wanted them to be fair catching just to be safe, or what. But you know what? It didn't matter that much. So I mean, I guess it's something they can work on maybe. But I think the problem is Andre DeBose. I don't know if they completely trust him. And I don't know if Andre DeBose completely trusts himself. So it's unfortunate that Andre DeBose is not kind of living up to his potential, but I guess we'll see what happens there. He did finally make his first catch of the season, and that was the only ball that was thrown to him. So maybe we will see more of him. I hope he's not like just a secret weapon that Florida's waiting to use. Against Vanderbilt, he might have a chance. Vanderbilt's secondary is pretty good though. I really do hope that Andre DeBose can in fact show his potential, because he really does have a lot of natural talent. But that's gets in the offense too though. So let's go with the defense first, just because there really isn't much to say on the defense. Because they just couldn't move the ball very well, and there's more reasons to that than Zach Mettenberger's not very good. The 3-4 hybrid look we use, where we send the outside linebacker in and out, and we send the middle linebackers in and out, that's a tough thing to defend if you're not really used to it. And Florida was mixing up coverage, and they were mixing up the blitz packages throughout the entire game, and it made it, I would say, it would have made it very difficult. Really difficult. I mean, they were saying from the corner blitzes. That's tough. And with LSU's offensive linemen dropping out and getting injured, I mean, it's hard to come in to replace a guy and then immediately be able to pick up the blitz packages. You haven't really seen it all game because you really haven't been on the field. I mean, so that's an issue, I think, for LSU, is that their backups just weren't really prepared for that. I talked about how our offensive line would whiff on block. That was pretty common for LSU, where they would miss the chip, they would miss, just that kind of stuff, just bad. So yeah, that's the general idea I got from the defense, and that really is what won the game. But I mean, there's some other stuff. There was that unsportsmanlike penalty, which would have prevented the LSU from punting, and that really got them the 3 points there. Um, and I think I'm not entirely upset about that because I think because we won still, but I think it'll be a good lesson to take away. It's just I think aggression is good, and I think hopefully this will be like keep up the aggression, but don't do stupid stuff like that. And we didn't have many penalties this game anyway. It was like I think it was like 5. So I think that's still we're still not doing too bad. Um, Next, Matt Elam is basically a monster. As we've heard, Dominic Easley is a murder bear. Matt Elam is basically a wraith from Lord of the Rings who descends on people. He's a freaking Nazgul. He attacks regardless of what colors you wear. He is basically just a Nazgul in the skies, ready to like dive in and kill shit out of people. It's incredible to watch him play because he runs to the ball with such fierceness. Like the only one I can compare him to sort of is Major Wright, because Major Wright and Reggie Nelson, and basically these are players who look to engage and hit, and it's great to have one of those guys in your secondary, especially playing the safety position, because they will annihilate dudes, and that makes your secondary something to be feared. And I think Matt Elam is very good for our team because of it. I'm really excited to see how he continues to develop. If he comes back next year, which he probably will. I mean, he's well regarded this year, but I haven't really seen a ton of talk about him. If he does come back next year, he will be very he will probably in the next draft, I would assume, go in the top first round, because he is just he's shown he has an ability to get better, and he's still developing, and he's already good. And I think he'll just be great. I think he just needs a bit more time probably, and to mature his game, and I think he'll be right there. Um, so okay, I think the run defense is something that we really have to talk about, because it's so important to LSU's offense that we saw in that first drive, right, that there was a lot of quick passes that Mettenberger was doing. I think that was because Les was trying to get Mettenberger into a rhythm. And I think that's a good idea against Florida, because our short passing defense, usually we have to adjust to that. Usually we usually don't play guys too tight unless they show that we have to. So when we saw that, it just I think when we saw that quick passing game, I think when we came out of that first drive, we were just like, well, what do we do? And what happened was we did play a little more press coverage, but realistically, we actually didn't change much. I think Muschamp wanted to see again if they could do it again, if they could just execute those quick plays, and well, they couldn't. And the reason for that is it's a combo. It's a combo of Mettenberger not throwing a very good ball, and his guys dropping even the okay ones he threw. And the reason he wasn't throwing well is because even when he wasn't getting sacked, and he did get sacked a few times, the pressure was right up against him on nearly every play. And it was just right up against it. And this is the difference between LSU and what we did. On third down, when they had to go 10 yards or 9 yards or whatever, they would be very dedicated to making Mettenberg comfortable. So they would have him still do short passes on third down, even if it possibly wouldn't have been a first down. They were throwing in front of the line, the first down line. So they were really dedicated to that, and so that's just that's their passing game, really. I mean, there's really not a lot to say about that. But yeah, so the run defense is really the most important thing, and Spencer Ware is back this year, and he gashed us really badly last year, and he is a downhill good running. He's a very good running back, and he got completely stymied by both and this is a combo effort of pretty much the entire defense, but the front seven really obviously get probably the most credit for this. And even though Matt Elam would come up and make a tackle, and the guys who get off on the sweeps would do the corners and stuff would do a pretty good job getting off their blocks, and um, it was just we did a very good job of slowing Spencer Ware down close to the line of scrimmage, and I talked about this a lot, about how when we need to improve our run defense, we need to engage guys just at the line of scrimmage and just slow them down and then gang tackle because we have to play to our speed, we have to play to our ability, and that's what we did against Spencer Ware, and he didn't really have an opportunity to get into a rhythm as a runner because of it. This was partly due to the run defense, the defensive line, just doing a great job of hitting him slightly. Like they would slow him down. They would make him have to change his course. They would have to do something, and the linebackers would clean it up. And that was a great job by the linebacker. Linebacker play was insanely good when they were defending the run or the pass. They were just playing very good disciplined play, except for that one penalty. They were just their gap assignment was excellent. The reason we won in the trend is just the defensive line was more physical than the offensive line, and they slowed down their runners and then swarmed, and plays that went for 5-6 yards last year went for 2 yards, 1 yard, or even stops at the line of scrimmage or losses. And I think a portion of that is also when you have that swarming defense, you had just you don't have to worry so much about being being a great tackler when your defense is really where you're just holding guys up until everyone else comes in to just block guys out. So you saw guys not necessarily tackling, but because Spencer Ware's tough to tackle, but you guys just really holding him up and then him getting pushed back as the other guys came in. And you really need to have faith in your team to do that, and that's excellent. And when we kept the gains, the running gains to 2 or 3 yards, that's pretty good when you're facing an unbalanced offense and you have some of those loss or no game plays mixed in as well. So I mean that's the defense of the game to me, and that's that was just a great performance on defense. You can say what you will about LSU's offense, I suppose, but honestly, you really shouldn't take away from how well this defense did. So let's go to the offense, because the offense needs help, and here's the thing. So, okay, the passing game was a mess. Some sloppy routes are the problem for that. Some of it was Brett Peace was calling pass plays that I wasn't a fan of, just because they took too long to develop. And on top of that, I think some of the protection schemes just weren't there. That all comes together to create a kind of a sloppy passing game. The short passes were there, though. They were 5 for 6 with short pass, and the only one of the 6 that didn't work was still a completion for like 3 yards. So, and that was just because of an excellent tackle by someone on Jordan Reed. So when you have that kind of high percentage and effective short passing game, you kind of wonder why they had these couple long potential pass plays where Jeff gets basically hit usually, and and the mid-range passes were iffy as well because lack of setting up the short passes first. The wide receivers were dropping balls, they just weren't running clean routes, and so they weren't really helping him out on the mid-range passes, and that's where we really had our bread buttered in terms of the passing game this year. Jeff Driscoll is high percentage passer because we've kept these really manageable passes for him, and it seemed like we definitely tried to get a passing game that would have gone a bit longer, and I did say that we should throw in a longer pass or two in this game, but Driscoll had some opportunities to do that, and maybe he thought it wasn't there. Unfortunately, TV, when you watch it on TV, the receivers who are deep are cut out. But Driscoll, I think, had the opportunity to probably throw those, but maybe they're covered well. I have a hard time believing they were covered. They were all covered every time because they were loading the box pretty frequently. So I'm not entirely sure about that. there was an opportunity by Driscoll to lob a ball over Montgomery, or to check to another option on one of the sacks, and he got sacked. He pulled it in. So I think he's playing safe, but he's also playing hero football, which is he's playing safe by throwing the ball, but he's playing hero football by holding on to the ball. So it's this weird thing where he's just like he seems the one thing he doesn't want to do is throw an incompletion. Like that seems to be his one thing, his main thing, and it's just I don't know, it's just a weird kind of thing for him. There were a couple of penalties that did kill drives as well. Against LSU, they seem to really want to stay on that schedule and gain 3 yards, 4 yards, 3 yards, and just that's how you get the first down. And whenever you had the penalty and took 15 or 20 yards, it was just we seem to not know how to deal with that. And I think more of the short passing game should have been used. I did mention the 2 possible strategies in last week's podcast where I talked about you can run right at LSU kind of defense, or you can try to frustrate them by throwing around them, doing draw plays, that kind of thing. We did not go with my second strategy. We went with the first strategy, and then we only did that at the very end. Up until then, it felt like we didn't really have an identity in terms of what we were doing, and I think that's largely. And protection schemes are to blame. I think the players did a pretty good job, but every protection scheme where you had one player following right behind the other, we seem to be really confused by that. And I think maybe Vandy will try to exploit that, where they'll have linebackers following right behind the defensive line and try to shadow them. And we have these kind of wide stand, like our offensive line, we're playing pretty far apart. When we had that going on, that's what happens, and it's unfortunate. I mean, we did try some plays that were, those sacks were nearly instantaneous too. It was like playing NCAA where you blow through the line or something, and the linebackers, there were some other plays that didn't really work, like the LSU linebackers were just too fast for sweep plays until Minter goes out with the injury. I would have preferred to see those be passes to the outside rather than sweeps to the outside. I think we saw some of those quick passes to the outside do pretty well. Some of the screens and stuff, just because I don't think they expected it. I just don't think they were prepared for it, and it worked pretty well. So I don't know what Brett Peace was trying to do. I think he was trying to do a well balanced attack until he just saw, oh, we can just run the ball at will. But I think I would have liked to see Driscoll check out of some of these plays, just because he I don't know if he saw what was going on, but I think perhaps he needs a bit more awareness of that as well, because there were some plays where it looked like it was clear where the pressure was coming from, and no one seemed to do anything. And when it led to a sack, it was just like, well, I wish someone had done something. I don't, not much else to say about that. Also, the Wildcat doesn't work on teams like LSU when there's zero threat of a pass, unless you are committed to the Wildcat. Because we did when Trey Burton was running the Wildcat, whenever he just ran forward, he was stopped pretty much every time. And the only time it really worked was when Trey Burton was giving the ball to somebody else against LSU, and that's just because if there's that threat, LSU's defensive line is clearly committed to stopping you running up the center until they were basically worn out. And so I thought Trey Burton, that was kind of a weird moment for Trey. I think Trey Burton probably should have been utilized more in the passing game by passing him out on the short yardage plays and trying to get him outside. I thought having him run up the gut was maybe it did lead to them the LSU defense being worn down, but realistically, I think some of those plays in the first half of Trey Burton were just kind of pointless. So it did set up a zone read on one play, and I don't know if Trey Burton is actually making the read or just has to give, but it did work because of it. It's just I'm a little. I think that was partially because LSU was starting to feel the injuries by then too. So I don't. It's hard to say. The O line did well in terms of their blocking, even on the passing plays. It was just when sometimes their schemes just weren't there, and it's just it's not really something you can blame on them. They were told what to do. There was a couple times where they would miss the man, but even if they would have gotten sometimes the first man, there was like guys following after, and it's just the jailbreak blitz we just had a lot of trouble with, and that's just it happens. That hopefully the coaches will prepare for that a bit better because I think the players did as well as they could. Every time we bounced the ball to the outside, good blocking by the receivers, good blocking by the tight ends. This is a shout out to Halapio, who I've given some crap to in the past for whipping on blocks. He was excellent in this game. He was very good, and I think he deserves a lot of credit for that. He definitely had a better player against him too, and he really came out well. Brent Peace deserves credit though for his run schemes. A lot of interesting run schemes, a lot of interesting kind of approaches he took to the run game. I really like. He called an excellent offensive drive. He seemed to really anticipate what LSU was thinking, and he just really did. He did a great job. Brent Peace did a great job calling that run game. I know he's more of a passing guy too, but the ability to show his ability to work around the run defense in the second half was excellent. Okay, kind of a weird thing. So we're last in the SEC in third down conversions, but we did better than our average against LSU. So that's cool. All right. We actually we actually did show ability to run right at LSU throughout the game, even when they did load the box. Except when we tried them right in the center, like right behind Harrison. And right when we basically give it to Gillislee and have him go basically right into the center. And the center was Harrison was having stalemates with whoever, I think it was Logan. They switched off on the defensive tackle, where he wouldn't be able to push into a gap, but he wasn't getting blown back into the backfield to that often either. So he was kind of stalemating his guy pretty much every play. Now, when Gillislee read the play correctly, he would go up the center, and then all of a sudden the defensive ends would have by then blown into the backfield, and when they would create holes. So when Gillislee read that correctly, he was commonly picking up 4 or 5 yard gains, and and I'm glad he didn't try to circle around. I think what the coaches probably told him to do was to just do not go backwards against LSU, and he didn't, but we did see, that because he got stood up and because the LSU line attacked it in kind of an uneven way, we saw how effective the spin move was, and I think that's what I was speaking to last week, and I think that's to some degree why I still feel like I was right in my assessment, in terms of how you affect that how you attack that kind of team, because when we saw Gillislee go right behind the center would be blocked off, like we wouldn't be able to create a hole there, like it's just Harrison just couldn't turn his man. But when Gillislee got behind Harrison, you could see him just spin out, and Harrison would just maintain his block, and Gillislee would go for a pretty good chunk of yards pretty much every time, 3, 4 or 5 yards or so. And it's not that we were pushing LSU's D line around; it was more that we were just engaging them long enough. And I think that was the key for a short passing game to develop as well. And it just so I was a little so I had some mixed reactions to that, I suppose. You really just had to engage them long enough for the hole to show. And basically, LSU's D line used to be able to get into the ball carrier and such in a way where they don't have to worry about contain or attacking in an even way. And I think we saw what can happen if someone exploits that in the second half. I think we definitely saw that, because the linebackers would have to then read these gaps, and they had to read it on the fly, and Gillislee could go either way. It was kind of like defending a penalty shot in soccer, and it's just like whether or not you guessed right. And even when they did guess right, Gillislee was still one-on-one with the linebacker, and he could usually push back into 3 or 4 yard gains. So I mean, definitely a great job by Gillislee. Great job by the offensive line there. Once I think Peace had an idea of their blitzing schemes, I think it was all over. Peace seems smart enough to be able to. Peace basically completely outsmarted John Chavis in the second half. John Chavis was just, and John Chavis is an older and seasoned LSU SEC defensive coordinator, and Brett Peace totally annihilated him in terms of strategy. So that was very cool to see. And even with the great defensive ends at LSU, it seems like LSU was always setting the blitz up the center, and most of the pressure came from the center, except along the longer developing plays, which is kind of a weird thing. And it's just, you had to play to that, and I think, when we did realize, when we did play to it, I think it was all gravy from there. Just a quick word about Mac Brown. I think I like to see what I saw. I liked what I saw from Mac Brown. He seems like he's a power runner. I think he'll do pretty well. I think he has probably a bit more to work on, but I think he's on the right track to potentially replacing Gillislee after this year. I think Gillislee, the guy deserves all the props in the world. I hope he at least gets the trip to New York for the Heisman ceremony. But it'll require you have to, continue playing well. If we keep winning, and he keeps putting up the big run yards, if he gets another 150 game against Vandy this week, I mean, there really is. I think Gillislee can really do well. I think he can definitely get shot in the NFL, and it couldn't happen to a better dude. He's just a great dude by all accounts. So I guess that's the recap. So it was a good win. As you may recall, I predicted 16-10. It was 14-6. So pretty close by me. I was off by 2 points for our score, and I was off by 4 for LSU. And I thought they would score a touchdown. My mistake, I guess. Even on that fumble, ball security, it's important. I mean, but that kind of stuff happens. So yeah, I'm looking for the Vanderbilt game. I hope we go into that with the idea of really improving our passing game and really getting the mid-range passes working again. Because I think we'll need that to win against Georgia and South Carolina, who are both excellent teams. Well fought to LSU, and I'll see you guys next week.